My name is Sienna Brennan. I'm 32 years old, and 6 months ago, my parents sued me for $682,000 for a house I never agreed to buy. They bought my sister Melody a four-bedroom home in the suburbs and secretly put my name on the mortgage as co-signer without my knowledge or consent. I found out through a collections letter. When I called my mother, shaking, demanding an explanation, she said 5 words that still echo in my head. We decided you should pay. When I refused, they didn't apologize. They took me to court. Melody testified against me, claiming I'd made a verbal promise at Christmas dinner 2 years ago. But there was something they didn't know, something I'd kept in a folder for years, waiting for the day I'd need proof that I wasn't crazy. Before I tell you what happened in that courtroom, please take a moment to like and subscribe, but only if you genuinely connect with this story. I'd love to know where you're watching from and what time it is there. Drop it in the comments. Let me take you back to the beginning to understand how I became the family villain for the crime of saying no. Growing up, there were two daughters in the Brennan house, and everyone knew which one mattered more. Melody was the golden child. Warm, charming, always knew the right thing to say at family dinners. She'd laugh at Dad's jokes, help Mom in the kitchen without being asked, and somehow manage to make every relative feel like they were her favorite person. Teachers adored her. Neighbors waved when she walked by. She was the kind of daughter parents brag about at church. And then there was me. I was quiet, focused. I preferred numbers to small talk, spreadsheets to gossip. While Melody collected compliments, I collected A's, not because I craved approval, but because precision made sense to me in a way people never did. When I passed my CPA exam at 26, I called home expecting congratulations. My father's response, "So when are you getting married like your sister?" Melody had married Derek Cole at 24, 2 kids by 28. My parents helped them with rent for 5 years straight, checks every month, no questions asked. When I graduated with student loans, I paid them off myself. No one offered. No one asked if I needed help. Every holiday, same script. Mom would watch Melody bounce a grandchild on her knee and then turn to me with that look, the one that said I was lacking something essential. "You should learn from your sister," she'd tell me, patting my hand like I was a project she hadn't given up on yet. Melody knows how to make people love her. I stopped expecting praise around the time I realized I'd never earn it, no matter what I achieved. The rules were different for me. They always had been. I just didn't know how different until they needed something I had. The label came gradually, then all at once. Sienna, the selfish one. It started 3 years ago when Melody called asking for $15,000. She needed a new car. The old one had transmission problems, and Derek's job wasn't covering expenses like it used to. She promised to pay me back within 6 months. I said no, not because I didn't have it, but because she still owed me $8,000 from the last time. Money I'd never seen again, never even been thanked for. Mom called that night, crying. "How can you be so cold to your own sister?" 6 months later, Melody asked me to co-sign her apartment lease. The landlord wanted a guarantor, and her credit wasn't strong enough. I declined. I explained that co-signing meant legal liability, that if she defaulted, I'd be responsible. Dad's response was 3 weeks of silence. No calls, no texts. The cold treatment, delivered with surgical precision. Then came my nephew's 5th birthday party. I couldn't attend. I had a deadline for a major client audit. Missing it meant risking my job. I sent a gift, called to apologize. Melody posted a Facebook status that night. "Family should always come first. Sad when some people forget that." 47 likes. 12 comments agreeing with her. Aunt Patricia wrote, "Some people only care about themselves." After that, I started keeping records. Every request, every refusal, every guilt trip that followed. I created a folder in my email called Family Requests, not out of spite, but because when you're told you're crazy often enough, you start needing proof that you're not. That folder would become the most important thing I owned. I just didn't know it yet. The envelope looked ordinary, standard bank letterhead, my name and address printed in that impersonal font all financial institutions use. I almost threw it away with the junk mail. Second notice, the header read, mortgage payment overdue. Property address, 4847 Willowbrook Lane, Lakewood, Colorado. I'd never heard of Willowbrook Lane. I'd never set foot in Lakewood. Sent. My hands went cold as I read further. Outstanding balance, $682,000. Cosigner, Sienna M. Brennan. I called the bank immediately. The representative was polite, professional, completely unaware she was about to turn my world inside out. Yes, Ms. Brennan, you're listed as cosigner on this mortgage. The account was opened 14 months ago. The primary borrowers are Harold Brennan and Melody Brennan Cole. There has to be a mistake. My voice didn't sound like mine. I never signed anything. I have the application right here, ma'am. Your signature is on file. The documents were notarized on September 15th, 2023. Notarized. Someone had watched a signature go onto paper and stamped it as legitimate. A signature I never wrote. For a house I never agreed to buy. For a sister who never asked. I pulled up my credit report while still on the phone. There it was, a $682,000 liability attached to my name like a parasite, quietly destroying my credit score for over a year while I had no idea. The mailing address on file was my parents' house, the one I hadn't lived in for a decade. I thanked the representative and hung up. Then I stared at that letter for 10 minutes straight, trying to make sense of what my family had done. That night, I called my mother. And the words she said, I still hear them when I can't sleep. Mom answered on the third ring, casual, cheerful, like nothing was wrong. Sienna, what a nice surprise. We were just talking about you. Did you put my name on a mortgage? Silence. 3 seconds. 4. An eternity. We were going to tell you. Her voice dropped. Careful now. Measured. Tell me what, Mom? Rustling. Dad's voice in the background. Then he was on the line. This is family, Sienna. Melody needed the house. You have a good job. We decided you should help. You decided? My hands were shaking. Without asking me? We raised you. We paid for your upbringing. This is what family does. I paid off my own student loans, every cent. You paid for Melody's entire education. That's different. You were always difficult. I heard Mom take the phone back. Her voice had that wet edge it got when she was about to cry, the weapon she'd used my whole life. If you loved us, Sienna, you wouldn't make this so hard. Make what hard? You forged my signature. You committed fraud. Don't be dramatic. Dad again, annoyed now. We used your name on some paperwork. It's not a crime when it's family. It literally is. We don't have the money, Sienna. His voice cracked. First time I'd ever heard that. We used our retirement for the down payment. All of it. If we lose this house, we lose everything. There it was. The truth underneath the justifications. They'd gambled their future on Melody's dream home and expected me to cover the bet. You're 32, Dad continued. No husband, no kids. What do you even need that money for? I hung up without answering. Some questions don't deserve a response. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I researched. The math was brutal. If the mortgage defaulted with my name attached, my credit score would crater. 7 years of damage, minimum. Collection calls, potential lawsuits from the bank. And my career? Many accounting firms run credit checks on employees who handle client finances. A foreclosure on my record could cost me everything I'd spent a decade building. This wasn't just about money. It was about my entire future. At 2 a.m, I called Marcus Webb. We'd been friends in college, study partners during those brutal accounting courses. He'd gone into real estate law instead, specialized in mortgage fraud and property disputes. Sienna? His voice was groggy. It's the middle of the night. I know. I'm sorry. I need help. I told him everything. The letter, the phone call, my parents' casual admission that they'd sign my name without permission. If you didn't sign, he said slowly, this is identity fraud, forgery, serious stuff. What do I do? First, get copies of everything. The mortgage application, the notarized documents. You have a right to those under federal law. Second, do you have any evidence you never agreed to this? I thought about my folder, the emails, the documented refusals. I sent Melody an email 3 years ago, when she asked me to co-sign her apartment lease. I told her no, in writing. I said I would never co-sign any loan for her. Forward that to me. His voice was sharper now, alert. That's exactly the kind of evidence we need. Marcus said something that night that stuck with me. Your signature is your word. If someone forges it, they're not just stealing money, they're stealing your integrity. I found that email at 3 a.m., read it twice, then forwarded it to Marcus. 2 weeks later, I drove to my parents' house for Thanksgiving. Not because I wanted to, but because I needed to look them in the eye when I said no. The driveway was full, cars I didn't recognize. My stomach tightened. Inside, I found not just Mom, Dad, and Melody, but Aunt Patricia, Uncle Ronnie, Grandma Ellen, and 3 cousins I hadn't seen in years. The dining table was set for 12. This wasn't a holiday dinner. This was an ambush. Melody stood first, arms crossed. We all know why we're here, Dad nodded. Sienna, sit down. We need to talk as a family. About what? I didn't sit. Your sister needs this house. This family needs you to step up. Aunt Patricia leaned forward. You've always been the selfish one, Sienna. This is your chance to prove us wrong. Everyone watched, waiting. The pressure was physical, like humidity before a storm. I didn't sign anything. My voice came out steadier than I felt. Melody's eyes narrowed. You said you would help. When? Give me a date. Christmas. 2 years ago, at dinner. I said I'd think about it. Thinking isn't signing. You nodded. Melody's voice rose. We all saw you nod. A nod isn't a contract. It is in this family. Then this family has a very loose definition of consent. Uncle Ronnie muttered something about ungrateful kids these days. Grandma Ellen dabbed her eyes with a napkin. Mom was already crying. Soft, practiced tears designed to make me the villain. Dad stood up. His chair scraped against the floor. The whole room went silent. Then you leave us no choice. Those words hung in the air like a threat, because that's exactly what they were. No choice about what? I asked. Dad's jaw was set. That look I'd seen my whole life, the one that meant he'd made a decision and nothing would change it. We're giving you until December 15th. Either you agree to pay the mortgage or we sue you. The room seemed to tilt. Sue me, my own parents. Sue me for what? Breach of verbal agreement. Melody is our witness. She'll testify you promised to help. I looked at my sister. She wouldn't meet my eyes. Just sat there, arms wrapped around herself, playing the victim she'd always been so good at performing. You'd perjure yourself? I asked her directly. Lie under oath? It's not lying if I remember it that way. Mom rushed over, grabbed my hands. Her face was wet, pleading. Sienna, please, we're your parents. How can you do this to us? You committed fraud, Mom. You stole my identity, and you're asking what I'm doing to you? It's family money. It's not stealing when it's family. I pulled my hands free. The touch felt contaminated now. Grandpa Harold, my father's father, sat at the end of the table. He hadn't said a word the entire time. 84 years old, quiet in a way that always seemed like wisdom rather than absence. His eyes met mine across the room. No accusation there. No judgment. Something else. Something that looked almost like pity? December 15th, Dad repeated. You have 3 weeks. I gathered my coat, my keys, what was left of my composure. I'll see you in court then. Walking out, I heard Mom wail, heard Aunt Patricia call me heartless, heard everything except an apology. But Grandpa's expression stayed with me the whole drive home. He knew something. I was sure of it. I was almost to my car when I heard footsteps behind me. Grandpa Harold moved slowly, his cane tapping against the concrete driveway. The November air was sharp, carrying the smell of dead leaves and someone's distant fireplace. "Sienna, wait!" I turned. He was breathing hard from the short walk. 84 years old, chasing his granddaughter into the cold because no one else would. "I'm sorry, Grandpa, I can't stay in there." "I know." He reached me, steadied himself. His eyes were clear despite his age, clearer than anyone else's in that house. "You shouldn't." "Did you know? About the mortgage?" He was quiet for a moment. "I found out after. Tried to talk sense into your father. He wouldn't listen. He never does." I felt something crack in my chest. All those years of wondering if I was the problem, if my boundaries made me broken somehow, and here was the one person telling me I wasn't crazy. "Check the notary date," he said quietly. "On the mortgage documents. Something's not right." "What do you mean?" "Just check it." He squeezed my arm. "And Sienna, your grandmother would be proud of you, standing up like this. She never could with Harold Sr. Wishes she had." Grandma Ruth had passed 8 years ago. I barely remembered her, but I remembered she was kind, soft-spoken in a family full of loud opinions. I hugged him, brief, careful. His bones felt fragile under his coat. Then I got in my car and drove home in silence. No radio, no podcasts, just the highway and my thoughts and the ache of leaving behind a family that had never really been mine. That night, I opened my laptop, started digging. Grandpa was right. Something wasn't right. And I was going to find out exactly what. If you've ever been in a situation where your own family made you feel like the villain just for having boundaries, I want to hear your story. Drop it in the comments below. You're not alone in this, and neither am I. While you're here, if this story is resonating with you, a like really helps the channel grow. Now, let me tell you what I found when I started digging into that mortgage application. Because Grandpa was right, something was very wrong. Under federal law, I had the right to request copies of any financial documents bearing my name. I filed the paperwork that week. The bank processed it in 10 days. When the envelope arrived, I sat at my kitchen table for a full minute before opening it. Whatever was inside would either confirm my worst fears or prove I was somehow mistaken about everything. I wasn't mistaken. The mortgage application was 12 pages long. My signature appeared on 3 of them. I studied it under my desk lamp, comparing it to my actual signature on my driver's license. The differences were subtle but unmistakable. My S curves backward at the top, a quirk from rushing through signatures during tax season. The S on these documents curved forward, rounder, slower. Written by someone who knew what my signature looked like, but had never actually watched me write it. Then I checked the notary date, September 15th, 2023. My heart stopped. I pulled up my calendar from that month, scrolled through the entries, and there it was, September 14th through 17th, AICPA National Conference, Seattle. I'd been 800 miles away when someone signed my name on a $682,000 mortgage. I had the boarding pass, the hotel receipt. A photo I'd posted on Instagram standing with 2 colleagues in front of the Space Needle. Time-stamped September 15th at 4:47 p.m. The document claimed I'd signed in person, witnessed by a notary in Colorado, on a day I wasn't even in the state. Someone had forged my signature, and someone else, a licensed notary public, had verified a lie. I forwarded everything to Marcus that night. His response came in 3 minutes. "This is exactly what I needed. We're not just defending anymore, we're going on offense." Marcus filed a subpoena for the bank's internal records. As part of my counterclaim preparation, we had the right to any communications related to my mortgage application. The bank's legal team complied within 2 weeks, standard procedure when fraud allegations are on the table. What they sent changed everything. Marcus called me on a Tuesday evening. His voice had that edge it gets when he's found something significant. Sienna, I need you to sit down. Just tell me. There's an email chain between Melody and the loan officer who processed your application, a guy named Kevin Torres. He read them to me. Each word landed like a hammer. Email 1, from Melody. Is there any way to add my sister to the application without her being physically present? She's traveling for work and can't make it to the signing. Email 2, Kevin's reply. If you have power of attorney, or she can sign remotely through a verified process, we can accommodate that. Otherwise, we'd need her present for notarization. Email 3, from Melody. She can't do remote signing, she's at a conference with bad Wi-Fi, but my dad can handle the paperwork on her behalf. Is that okay? Email 4, Kevin's response. As long as the documents are properly notarized, we can process the application. As long as the documents are properly notarized, meaning Kevin Torres either didn't know or didn't care that my father was about to forge my signature and have his buddy stamp it as legitimate. He cut corners, Marcus said, didn't verify your identity, didn't confirm consent. That's a massive compliance violation. I stared at the wall of my apartment. Reading those emails felt like watching my own robbery in slow motion, and everyone involved thought they'd get away with it. Marcus advised me to file a formal report. Identity fraud, forgery, criminal complaints that would create an official record regardless of what happened in civil court. I went to the Denver Police Department on a Wednesday morning, filled out paperwork, handed over copies of everything, the mortgage documents, my flight records, the email chain. The officer who took my statement was polite but non-committal. "We'll be in touch," she said. I didn't expect much. A week later, my phone rang. Unknown number with a Denver prefix. "Ms. Brennan, this is Detective Carla Nguyen, Financial Crimes Unit." I nearly dropped my coffee. "I've reviewed the documents you submitted," she continued. "Based on the evidence, we're opening a formal investigation into potential identity fraud and forgery." What does that mean? It means we'll be contacting the notary who certified your signature and the loan officer who processed the application. We may request additional documentation from the bank. She paused. "This is a serious matter, Ms. Brennan. Mortgage fraud carries significant penalties." "I understand. I have one question before I let you go." Her voice was careful, measured. "Do you believe your family members knew this was illegal?" The question hit harder than I expected, not because the answer was unclear, but because saying it out loud made everything more real. "I think they didn't care," I finally said. "They needed money. They saw me as a solution. Whatever laws they broke, whatever it meant for my credit, my career, none of that mattered as much as getting what they wanted." Detective Nguyen was quiet for a moment. "We'll be in touch, Ms. Brennan. In the meantime, save any communications you receive from your family. They may become relevant." I saved everything. I'd learned that lesson a long time ago. December 20th, 5 days before Christmas. The process server found me at work. Professional, efficient. She handed me the envelope with the practiced detachment of someone who does this 100 times a week. "Sienna Brennan?" "Yes." "You've been served." Inside, Harold Brennan and Diane Brennan vs. Sienna Brennan, filed in Douglas County Civil Court. Damages sought: $682,000 plus legal fees and court costs. The complaint ran 8 pages. Breach of oral contract, unjust enrichment. They claimed I had verbally agreed to help with the mortgage and then reneged, causing them financial harm and emotional distress. Melody was listed as a witness. She would testify under oath that I'd promised to help during a family dinner, that my nod was as good as a signature, that I'd betrayed my own blood over money. I read it twice in my office, door closed, hands steady through sheer willpower. This was really happening. My parents weren't bluffing. They'd hired a lawyer, a real one, from a firm downtown, and they were taking me to court. The same people who'd raised me, who taught me to ride a bike and helped with homework and sat in the front row at my college graduation. Now they wanted a judge to force me to pay for a house my sister lived in, using a promise I never made as their weapon. I called Marcus. He answered on the first ring. I got served. Expected, he said. Don't panic, we're more than ready. They didn't even mention the forged signature. The whole complaint is about a verbal agreement. Because they know the documents are a problem, they're avoiding it on purpose. Will that work? No, because we're not going to let them. The lawsuit wasn't enough for my family. They needed the court of public opinion too. Melody posted first. A long, carefully crafted message on Facebook. Some people care more about money than blood. I never thought my own sister would watch our parents lose their retirement over pride. Please keep our family in your thoughts during this difficult time. 347 reactions, 92 comments. Everyone from high school acquaintances to distant relatives weighing in with prayers and sympathy and thinly veiled criticism of the unnamed villain. Aunt Patricia commented, "Praying for you, sweetheart. Some people show their true colors eventually." Cousin Rachel, "Family should always come first. So sad when someone forgets that." A friend from my old neighborhood screenshots the post and texted me, "Did you see this? Everyone's talking about you." I saw it. Saw the narrative being written in real time. Sienna the cold one. Sienna the selfish one. Sienna who abandoned her family over money. What they didn't post, the forged signature, the identity theft, the mortgage I never agreed to sign. Those details didn't fit the story they wanted to tell. I drafted a response, then deleted it. Drafted another. Deleted that too. Marcus had warned me about this. Social media is a battlefield you can't win. Every word you say can be used against you. Let them talk. The courtroom is the only stage that matters. So I stayed silent. Watched my reputation get dismantled by people who'd never asked for my side. Watched family members I hadn't spoken to in years suddenly have opinions about my character. The hardest part wasn't the accusations. It was knowing that not a single person in those comments had called to ask if any of it was true. They'd already decided who I was. They always had. Christmas arrived like an afterthought. I'd been so focused on depositions and evidence and legal strategy that the holiday barely registered until the day itself. I found out about the family gathering through Instagram. My nephew Tyler, Melody's oldest, posted a story. The whole family in matching pajamas gathered around my parents' tree. Mom, Dad, Melody, Derek, the kids. Aunt Patricia with her signature oversized wine glass. Even Grandpa Harold, sitting in his usual armchair by the fireplace. Everyone except me. No invitation, no call, not even a text asking if I wanted to come. I'd been erased from the picture, literally and figuratively. I watched the story 3 times, studied the smiles, the laughter, the performance of unity against the daughter who'd dared to say no. Mom texted that evening. Just once. "You chose this. Remember that." I didn't respond. What was there to say? I spent Christmas alone, ordered Thai food, poured myself a glass of wine, sat on my couch with the case files spread around me like the world's worst holiday decorations. Around 9 p.m., my phone buzzed. Private message on Instagram from Grandpa's account. He barely knew how to use it, so someone must have helped him set it up. "I'm sorry, I tried to stop them. They wouldn't listen. Merry Christmas, Sienna." I cried for the first time since this whole thing started. Not because of the exclusion, I'd expected that, but because one person in that family had seen me. One person knew the truth and had the courage to say it. That night, I reread my email from 3 years ago, the one where I'd refused to co-sign. I'd saved it on a whim, never imagining I'd need it. Now it might save everything. March 3rd, 8:47 a.m., Douglas County Courthouse. I arrived 30 minutes early wearing my charcoal gray suit, the one I saved for client presentations and job interviews. Professional, put together. not a single hair out of place because I refused to give them the satisfaction of seeing me rattled. The courthouse smelled like old wood and industrial cleaner. My heels clicked against the marble floors as I walked toward courtroom 2B. Every sound echoed. Marcus met me in the hallway. He looked sharp in his navy suit, leather briefcase in hand. "How are you feeling?" "Like I'm about to watch my family lie under oath." "They probably will. That's what the evidence is for." We found seats near the front. The room was smaller than I'd imagined. Maybe 40 seats in the gallery, a raised bench for the judge, 2 tables facing forward for plaintiff and defendant. At 8:55 they arrived. Dad first, in a suit I'd never seen before. Mom behind him, clutching his arm like she might collapse without support. Melody came next, eyes red-rimmed. Whether from crying or strategic eye drops I couldn't tell. Derek followed, jaw tight, looking everywhere except at me. Behind them, Aunt Patricia, Cousin Rachel, 2 other relatives I barely recognized. The gallery filling with witnesses to my supposed villainy. They took the plaintiff's table, 20 feet away, close enough to see Mom's trembling hands, Dad's rigid posture, Melody whispering something to their lawyer. None of them looked at me. Marcus leaned close. "Remember, you have the truth. They have a story. Let's see which one holds up." The bailiff called the room to order. Everyone rose. The Honorable Eleanor Price presiding. The judge entered, stern face, silver hair pulled back, reading glasses perched on her nose. This was it. Their lawyer went first. Mitchell Davidson, gray hair, expensive watch, the practiced confidence of someone who'd done this 1,000 times. "Your Honor, this is a case about broken promises." He paced slowly before the bench. "About a daughter who agreed to help her family and then changed her mind when the bills came due." I kept my face neutral. Show nothing, give them nothing. "Will present evidence that the defendant verbally agreed to assist her parents with this mortgage. Her own sister witnessed this promise, a promise made at a family Christmas dinner in 2022. Davidson called Melody to the stand. She walked forward like she was heading to an execution, hands clasped, eyes downcast. The picture of reluctant testimony. "Mrs. Brennan Cole," Davidson began, "can you tell us about the Christmas dinner 2 years ago?" Melody nodded, dabbed her eyes. "Sienna was there. We were all talking about how expensive houses had gotten. Mom mentioned she wanted to help me buy a home for my kids." "And what did the defendant say?" "She said," Melody's voice cracked. "She said, 'I'll think about it.' And then she nodded. We all saw it." "And you interpreted that as agreement?" "Yes. In our family, when someone nods, they're saying yes. That's just how we communicate." Dad testified next. Same script, same rehearsed pauses. "She's my daughter." His voice was heavy with disappointment. "I raised her. I never thought she'd let us down like this." Not once did Davidson mention the mortgage documents. Not once did he address the signature I supposedly wrote. The entire case rested on a nod at a dinner table, a moment no one could prove or disprove. They were avoiding the paper trail because they knew it would destroy them. Marcus stood slowly, let the silence stretch. "Your Honor, my client never made any verbal agreement. She said she would think about it, which is not a promise, not a contract, and not consent." Davidson shifted in his seat. Melody stared at the floor. "But more importantly," Marcus continued, "even if she had agreed, it wouldn't matter. Because there's a mortgage document in existence with her name on it, a document she did not sign." The courtroom went still. "I'd like to enter Exhibit A, the mortgage application for 4847 Willowbrook Lane, showing Sienna Brennan as co-signer." He handed copies to the judge, the plaintiff's table. "And Exhibit B, flight records and hotel receipts proving my client was in Seattle, Washington, on the date this document was allegedly signed and notarized." Judge Price studied the papers. Her expression didn't change, but her eyes narrowed. "Mr. Webb, are you suggesting this signature was forged?" "I'm not suggesting, Your Honor. I'm stating it as fact." Marcus approached the evidence display. The mortgage signature appeared on screen, large enough for everyone to see. "Ms. Brennan," he said, turning to me, "is this your signature?" I stood. My voice was clear. "No, it is not. Would you please sign your name for the court 3 times on this paper?" I walked to the stand, took the pen, wrote my name 3 times, exactly as I always did. The S curved backward, the loop on the B was distinctive. Marcus placed my fresh signatures beside the mortgage document on the display. The difference was obvious, even from 20 feet away. "The signature on the mortgage curves forward," Marcus said. "Ms. Brennan's actual signature curves backward. She didn't sign this document, someone else did." In the gallery, I heard Aunt Patricia inhale sharply. "Okay, I need to pause here because this is where everything shifted. If you're still with me, I want to know, what would you have done in my shoes? Pay up to keep the family peace? Or fight for the truth, even when everyone's against you? Let me know in the comments. And if you're invested in what happened next, hit that subscribe button because the judge's response changed everything." Now back to the courtroom, because Marcus wasn't finished. Marcus reached for another folder. "Your Honor, I'd like to enter Exhibit C, an email chain between Melody Brennan Cole and Kevin Torres, the loan officer who processed this mortgage application." Davidson rose. "Objection, relevance. These emails directly demonstrate how my client's identity was added to this mortgage without her knowledge. They're central to our defense." Judge Price nodded. "I'll allow it. Proceed." Marcus read aloud, each word landing like a verdict. "Email from Melody Brennan Cole, dated September 10th, 2023. Is there any way to add my sister to the application without her being physically present? She's traveling for work." I watched Melody's face, the color draining, Derek turning to stare at his wife. Reply from Kevin Torres. "If someone else handles the paperwork, we can process, as long as the documents are properly notarized." Final email from Mrs. Brennan Cole. "She can't do remote signing, she's at a conference, but my dad can handle it on her behalf." The gallery erupted in whispers. Aunt Patricia's hand flew to her mouth. Dad's face went from pale to red. Marcus turned to Melody. "Mrs. Brennan Cole, did you write these emails?" Davidson objected again. Overruled. Melody's voice came out strangled. I thought it was okay. My dad said he would handle everything." She was throwing him under the bus. Her own father. In front of a judge, in front of family, in front of everyone. Dad's jaw dropped. "Melody. He told me it was fine." Her composure shattered. "He said Sienna wouldn't even notice." Derek stood up, sat back down, looked at his wife like he'd never seen her before. Judge Price's gavel cracked against the bench. "Order. We will have order in this courtroom." But the damage was done. Everyone had heard. Everyone knew. Judge Price removed her reading glasses, folded them carefully, set them on the bench. The room held its breath. "I've reviewed the plaintiff's complaint," she began. "They allege a verbal agreement, a nod at a Christmas dinner, as the basis for demanding $682,000 from the defendant." She paused, looked directly at my parents. "I've also reviewed the defense's evidence, flight records proving the defendant was in Seattle on the date the mortgage was signed, signature analysis showing clear discrepancies, and email communications between the plaintiff's own witness and a loan officer, explicitly discussing how to add the defendant's name to documents without her presence." Mom started crying, real tears this time. "This court does not exist to enforce family expectations," Judge Price continued. "It exists to enforce the law, and the law is clear. A verbal agreement, even if it existed, would not obligate anyone to pay $682,000, especially when the documentary evidence suggests that same person's identity may have been fraudulently used." She straightened the papers in front of her. "The plaintiff's case relies entirely on testimony about a dinner conversation. The defense has presented documented proof that the defendant never signed the mortgage application and wasn't even in the state when it was allegedly notarized. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it. I'm dismissing this case with prejudice. Her gavel fell. Furthermore, I'm referring the mortgage documents and related emails to the district attorney's office for review of potential fraud charges. Aunt Patricia gasped. Dad gripped the edge of the table. Melody buried her face in her hands. The word dismissed echoed through the courtroom. And for the first time in 6 months, I exhaled. But we weren't done yet. Marcus rose immediately. Your Honor, while the plaintiff's case is dismissed, my client has a counterclaim to address. Judge Price nodded. Proceed. Sienna Brennan is filing suit against Harold Brennan, Diane Brennan, and Melody Brennan Cole for identity fraud, forgery, and damages to her credit and professional reputation. The room buzzed. Davidson looked stricken. He clearly hadn't prepared for this. We're requesting that the defendant be removed from all mortgage documents immediately, Marcus continued. We're also seeking reimbursement for legal fees incurred defending against a fraudulent lawsuit, as well as compensation for the damage done to her credit score, damage that threatened her career in the financial industry. A bank representative I hadn't noticed before stood. Your Honor, First Mountain Bank will cooperate fully. We're already conducting an internal investigation into how this application was processed. Judge Price made a note. The counterclaim will proceed to formal hearing. However, given the evidence presented today, I'm ordering an immediate review of the mortgage documents in question. If fraud is confirmed, the defendant's name should never have been attached and will be removed. She looked at my family, then at me. Ms. Brennan, do you have anything to add? I stood. My legs felt steadier than I expected. I looked at my parents, at Melody, at the relatives who'd come to watch me lose. I never wanted this. My voice was quiet, but clear. I didn't ask to be put on a mortgage I never agreed to. I didn't ask to be sued by my own family. You chose to do this instead of apologize. Remember that. I sat back down. No dramatic speech, no accusations, just the truth. Sometimes that's enough. The bailiff announced recess. People began to move. I gathered my things slowly, letting the reality sink in. We'd won. Not completely. The counterclaim still needed to proceed, but the attack was over. They'd tried to use the law as a weapon against me, and it had backfired. Marcus touched my shoulder. You did good in there. I told the truth. That's all. Sometimes that's the hardest thing. I walked into the hallway. The fluorescent lights seemed brighter now, less oppressive. Grandpa Harold was waiting by the window. He looked older than he had at Thanksgiving, tired, but when he saw me, something shifted in his face. I'm proud of you, he said. Your grandmother would be too. Thank you for the hint about the notary date. Least I could do. Should have done more. Behind us, footsteps, fast, angry. Melody burst through the courtroom doors, Derek trailing behind. Her mascara was ruined, her careful composure gone. You destroyed this family, she screamed at me. I didn't turn around, didn't engage. Derek's voice came next, but not directed at me. You lied to me. He was talking to Melody. You said she agreed. You said this was all legal. Derek, I can explain. Can you? Because I just heard you admit in a courtroom that you helped forge your own sister's signature. I kept walking. Behind me, their argument escalated. Melody crying, Derek demanding answers, the sound of a marriage cracking under the weight of discovered deception. Marcus caught up with me at the elevator. That went better than expected. I pressed the down button, watched the numbers climb. Did it? My parents tried to steal from me. My sister testified against me, and I had to prove my innocence in front of a judge. He had no answer for that. Neither did I. 2 months after the hearing, the pieces fell into place. First, the bank completed its investigation. Kevin Torres had violated multiple compliance protocols: failure to verify identity, failure to confirm consent, processing documents without proper due diligence. His termination was announced in an internal memo that somehow found its way to Marcus. The notary who certified my signature was a man named Gary Peterson, a friend of my father's from their bowling league. He'd notarized the mortgage in Dad's living room while I was 800 miles away. The Colorado Secretary of State revoked his license after a formal complaint. My name was officially removed from the mortgage. All of it. The application, the liability, the record on my credit report. Expunged. Like it never happened. My credit score recovered within 90 days. The district attorney's office reviewed the fraud referral. In the end, they declined to pursue criminal charges. First offense, family matter, no intent to defraud the bank itself. But my father and Melody both received civil penalties and formal warnings. A mark on their records that would follow them if they ever tried something similar again. My counterclaim settled out of court. They agreed to pay my legal fees in full, $23,000. It wasn't about the money. It was about accountability. I didn't celebrate. There was nothing to celebrate. My family had committed fraud, dragged me through the legal system, smeared my name to everyone we knew, and their punishment was a fine and a warning. But I had my name back, my credit, my integrity. Some victories don't feel like winning. They feel like surviving, and sometimes surviving is enough. The family I'd known didn't survive the trial. Melody and Derek separated 3 months later. He'd moved out of the Willowbrook house, the one that started everything, and filed for legal separation. Last I heard, they were negotiating custody. He told a mutual friend he couldn't trust her anymore, not after what came out in that courtroom. My parents had to sell the house. Without my name supporting the mortgage, they couldn't keep up with payments on their own. They'd already drained their retirement for the down payment. Now they were downsizing to a 2-bedroom condo in a neighborhood they used to drive past without stopping. Mom sent me one email after everything settled. 5 words. "You ruined us. Remember that." I didn't reply. Some accusations answer themselves. Aunt Patricia called unexpectedly in April. Her voice was different, smaller. "I didn't know the whole story," she said. "About the forged signature. About the emails. I believed what Melody told everyone." "I know. I'm sorry, Sienna. I should have asked you directly." I sat with that for a moment. The apology I'd never expected to receive. "Thank you for saying that," I finally said. Then I hung up. One apology from one aunt didn't erase what happened, but it reminded me that not everyone chooses to stay blind. Grandpa Harold sent me a handwritten letter that spring. His handwriting was shaky, but the words were clear. "I've updated my will. You're taken care of. You deserve to have someone in this family stand by you." He passed away 6 weeks later, peaceful, in his sleep. At the funeral, I sat in the back row. No one spoke to me, but I was there. That was enough. 6 months after the trial, right now, as I'm telling you this story, things look different. I got promoted at work, senior accountant. My boss pulled me aside when he gave me the news. "I've seen people crumble under less pressure than what you went through. You didn't. That kind of backbone is rare." I started therapy for the first time, not because I was broken, but because I wanted to understand. Why did I accept being treated poorly for so long? Why did I keep showing up to holidays where I was the punchline? What made me think I deserved less than everyone else in that family? Dr. Reese, my therapist, said something that stuck with me. Sometimes the people who are supposed to love us teach us to accept the unacceptable. Healing means unlearning those lessons. I'm still unlearning. I changed my last name legally. Burke, my mother's maiden name before she married into the Brennan family. It felt right. A small act of reclamation, a way of saying, I'm still connected to where I came from, but I choose who I become. Who? I have a small group of friends now. People who don't ask me to sacrifice my boundaries for their comfort. People who call to check on me, not to ask for money. Marcus and I get coffee every few weeks. He helped save my life, financially and legally. We laugh about bad courtroom movies. We don't talk about my family unless I bring it up first. The quiet took some getting used to. No more crisis calls. No more guilt trips. No more holidays spent feeling like an outsider in my own bloodline. Now there's just peace. It's strange how much space opens up when you stop carrying other people's expectations. Last month, I wrote a letter to my parents. Not to send, just to get the words out. Dr. Reese suggested it, a way to process without requiring a response. I sat at my kitchen table, pen in hand, and let myself write the truth. Mom and Dad, I loved you. I spent my whole life trying to earn something you gave Melody freely. I worked harder, asked for less, and still I was never enough. You saw my boundaries as betrayal, my success as something to exploit. When I said no, you heard hatred. When I protected myself, you called it selfishness. I didn't destroy this family. The lies did. The forgery, the decision to steal my identity rather than respect my answer. I was your daughter. I deserve to be asked, not taken from. I deserve the truth, not a courtroom. Maybe someday I'll forgive you. Maybe I won't. But either way, I'm done waiting for an apology that isn't coming. I hope you find peace. I'm finding mine without you. Sienna. I read it 3 times. Let the emotions move through me. The grief, the anger, the strange relief of saying things I'd kept locked away for 32 years. Then I deleted the file. Dr. Reese was right. The act of writing was the point. Not sending, not receiving, just acknowledging what happened and what it cost me. Closure doesn't always come from an apology. Sometimes it comes from accepting you'll never get one. I closed my laptop, poured a glass of wine, watched the sun set over Denver. No one was coming to fix what happened. No one was going to make it right. But I was still here, still standing. That would have to be enough. And slowly, it was becoming exactly that. Today is an ordinary Saturday. I'm sitting in my apartment, sunlight streaming through the windows. There's coffee on the table, a book I've been meaning to finish, and the kind of silence that used to feel lonely, but now feels like freedom. My phone buzzes. Text from Marcus. Coffee tomorrow? Bring your brutal honesty. I smile. Type back. Always. Sometimes I think about what Dad asked me that night on the phone. The question he meant as an insult. What do you even need that money for? I have an answer now. I need it for a life where no one can use me. For the freedom to say no without defending myself. For mornings like this one, quiet, peaceful, entirely my own. On my bookshelf there's a new photo frame. Grandpa and me, taken at a restaurant last year. His last Christmas. We'd escaped the family gathering for an hour, just the 2 of us, and a waiter offered to take our picture. He's smiling in the photo, really smiling. The inscription on the back, in his shaky handwriting. The strongest people are the ones who can walk away. I walked away, not because I didn't love them, but because loving myself meant more than earning theirs. They called me selfish, cold, the daughter who chose money over blood. But I didn't choose money. I chose integrity. I chose the right to my own signature, my own decisions, my own life. Some families lift you up. Some teach you to accept being knocked down. Mine taught me that no is a complete sentence. That keeping receipts isn't paranoia, it's protection. And that sometimes the people you share blood with are strangers, while the family you choose becomes everything. I didn't win because I had the better lawyer. I won because I never stopped believing I was worth fighting for. If this story resonated with you, if you've ever had to fight for your own boundaries against the people who should have protected you, I see you. You're not alone. Drop your story in the comments. I read every single one. And if you want more stories like this, there's another one waiting in the description about a woman whose in-laws tried to take her inheritance. Trust me, you won't want to miss the twist. Thank you for staying until the end. Like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.